What's up, everybody? And I welcome you to the latest episode of In the Mix. I am your host, Leah B, where I bring a history lesson to all your favorite genres of music. So, yeah, man, I cannot believe this is episode 9. I cannot believe I'm at episode 9 now, y'all. This journey has been a long road. I just celebrated last week my 1 year anniversary of this podcast. And I am like so happy about it because, man, oh man, oh man, I didn't think I would ever complete a year, period. I was just so amazed because normally when I start something or have this bright idea about something, I start it and just do not complete it. It would be sitting in my room. I wrote it down or something for like years and years and years. But this this is just amazing to me. I am like so happy about it. It's just a beautiful thing. I'm just so happy. I'm glad you guys enjoy what I do, what I bring to the podcast. And I like to call myself, I guess, what you call a storyteller because I like in telling stories. And I guess, in a way, this is telling stories about different people and the genres of music and the things and the songs and the people that I enjoy talking about. So I'm just so happy that you guys enjoy what I do. So let's get into it. So this episode is about this guy by the name of Tony Rich, aka the Tony Rich Project. So when I first heard this dude, you probably heard of the song Nobody Knows. It kind of goes like this. Nobody knows but me. Yeah. Sorry. I, you know me, I had to do my little singing and everything. But yeah. Um yeah, he when I first heard him, I remember hearing the song on the radio. I was like in 6th grade, but I always thought it was Babyface. And it wasn't. Once I saw the video, I'm like, oh, that is not him. I thought it was him, but it wasn't. It's a completely different dude. So, um, Tony Rich was born Antonio Jeffries on November 1971 in Detroit, Michigan. And growing up, he had many musical influences, especially being from Detroit. You got Motown and a bunch of other musical artists and everything like that. But Detroit was mostly known just for cars, as you know, the Motor City and Motown. So, yeah, he had many musical influences. He came from a musical family, so that kind of helped his musical influences as well. So he started his career as a songwriter. He um, was working in the early 90s, and he started in 91 his music career. He was working with the local group. He was their like in-house song writer and producer and everything. And one of the dudes in the group was wanting to, expand more, get their music out there a lot more. So he will set up auditions and everything, and I guess the auditions wasn't coming through. So the brother of the guys in the group set up a meeting with no one other than John Sally. As you may know, if you are like a huge basketball fan, like myself, I like the NBA. My favorite team is the Golden State Warriors. But if you're a huge basketball fan, you would know who he is, especially during that time in the early '90s. John Sally played for the Pistons, and during that time, they were huge. You had him, you had Isaiah Thomas, you had um, Dennis Rodman, you had I forgot the other guy's name. Shoot, Dennis Rodman, um, uh, Isaiah Thomas, uh, John Sally, a bunch of other people. I can't remember their names, but they were huge back in the day. Like, oh my God, you could not go anywhere. And they were during that time. They were known as the bad boys because that during that time the NBA fights used to break out, and they were tough. They was bad though. Like straight up, they was straight up bad. Like they were just that good. Bad meaning good. But yeah. So anywho, John Sally was into music at that time. He was very heavily involved in music and whatnot, and he had a studio, I guess, at that time, and he invited the guys and Tony Rich to the studio. So as they were, working on tracks and everything, and trying to figure it out and everything like that, Tony Rich was in the back, was chilling and trying to, get things together. And John Sally took notice of that, and he was just asking him questions like, do you sing? What do you do? Like, are you part of this group? I mean, what do you do? And Tony Rich was like, nah, man, he's just a songwriter. He was not trying to, be a singer. And he was just in the back. He was like, he enjoyed being in the back, just behind the scenes and all that stuff. And and he was looking for acts as well. He was looking for acts for his studio, and that's how he got connected with John Sally. So John Sally was impressed with that. So he was interested in working with him instead of the other guys in the group. So he kept in touch with him. John Sally did kept in touch with Tony Rich, and he liked what he heard as like his music. I guess he sent him some of his music, and he was impressed. And John Sally was like asked him to produce some tracks for him, and that was his first like paying gig. But after a while, John got traded to the Miami Heat. So he had went to Miami and got rid of the studio. So by that time, Tony had went to Atlanta. And once he got to Atlanta, he was doing gigs throughout the city in Atlanta as well. I guess one night, he was at a show or whatever, and after the show, he caught the attention of this producer duo by the name of Tim and Bob. As you probably don't know, Tim and Bob was like real popular at the time. They're still popular, but they were huge. Their sound was like amazing. They produced songs for Boys to Men, Brian McKnight, um, Tony Braxton, everybody. But they were hot at that time. They were popular. So once he got in touch with Tim and Bob, that's when um, they made a call to Pebbles. If you don't know who Pebbles is, she was popular during the 80s too, and she had that song Mercedes Boy. Don't you wanna ride in my Mercedes Boy? Tell me what you gonna do with me, with me, with me. So yeah, that was her. That was her biggest hit, and she had I forgot the other song she had, but yeah, she was popular at that time too. She was popular, and plus she was married to L.A. Reid. So yeah, but yeah, they got in touch with her, and they told her that they got this guy. He's real good. He just moved to Atlanta from Detroit. He's an amazing songwriter and all this stuff, and basically begged her to listen to him over the phone. So apparently she was impressed by what she heard, and he got a meeting with L.A. Reid from LaFace Records, and he became the in-house producer for the artists at LaFace, like Tony Braxton, Boyz II Men, and TLC, and Johnny Gill as well too, and another group called A Few Good Men as well. So he became their in-house producer and songwriter. So after a while, he was doing songs for them, writing songs for those artists. Another guy who was a producer named Eddie F. He was like, I think he was a rap producer, and he was in Atlanta too. He was the vice president of A&R at LaFace, and he tried to convince L.A. Reid to sign Tony Rich as an artist, and he became, the acronym was the Tony Rich Project. So that was his stage name, the Tony Rich Project. So after signing with LaFace, he began to work on his debut album, which was called Words. And the hit that everybody knew at that time was that came out that was called Nobody Knows. And that song reached it was released in November of 1995, and that became a hit single. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts at the time, and during the following year, so like 96 was when that song got to the charts, and that's when he used the moniker the Tony Rich Project. And he released his debut album called Words in 96. So both that album, Words, and Nobody Knows went platinum. And then after that, he had a song called Like a Woman, which it wasn't really that popular at that time. It wasn't as big as Nobody Knows. It had a few good success, but it was moderate. It wasn't like number one straight out the bag. So, and he also contribute to the soundtrack called Highway for this song called not this film. Sorry, the film called Fled. And also, he had made a song for the Olympics for the compilation album, the 96 Olympics, that was in Atlanta at that time. And the song was called You're a Winner. For the Rhythm of the Games, the 1996 album compilation. And the following year, in 97, that's when he received 4 Grammy nominations for the song Nobody Knows. He was nominated for Best New Artist, Best Pop Male Vocal Performance for the song Nobody Knows, and Best R&B Album for the song Words. And also Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for that second single, Like a Woman. And he won his first Grammy, actually, for the Best R&B Album. So the third single off Words was called Leaving. And it peaked at number 88 at that time on the Hot 100 and number 53 on the R&B charts. And also he did some, he was still in his songwriter bag. He did some production for this artist by the name of Sam Salter. He's a pretty good artist as well. There was this one song that I like by him. I might do a podcast on Sam Salter. Michael Bolton, a group called 4.0, and Aaron Neville. He also was in, he made his film debut in, as Duke Ellington, of all people. Yeah, the jazz legend Duke Ellington. In the movie Hoodlum. I remember that movie. That was a really good movie with Lawrence Fishburne. And also he recorded a song for the soundtrack called Harlem Is Home. Also, after the success of his debut album, he began working on his sophomore record. And the first single for that was called Silly Man. And that was released in 1998. And it did okay. It earned some airplay, but not very much, because I don't remember it. His second album was called Bird's Eye. And that was released in August of 98. And it peaked at number 66 and on the R&B chart. And it was critically acclaimed, but it didn't garner commercial success, unfortunately. So, due to the reason for that is because he changed labels, and that album was in limbo. So that's why he didn't really do too well. And during 98, he did a few remixes for the Spice Girls for their album Viva Forever. And he did some production work for CeCe Winans and Eric Clapton. And once his second album died down, he took a break and did some other projects and whatnot. So he came back in 99 with the song If This World Was Mine, for a compilation album. So within the next few years, he did some just staying in his lane, doing work for writing songs for gospel artists, and he did some tracks for Guy for their reunion tour. And after that, he took a few years off and came back in 2003, and he went independent after he went independent with his third album, and that single was called Traveling Alone. It became an urban adult contemporary hit at that time, and also it in 2006 he did a album. He did a fourth album, and it was called Resurrected, and it was pretty good. It did urban AC. It also had a hit for the Brazilian market as well. He worked on this album called Lusa Pose, and it was follow up to his the song. It was a follow up single for the track called Red Wine. So in 2006 he did a fourth album called Pictures, which is the theme was about relationships, which had a more R&B influence than the fourth album. It was a rock theme album. And so in 2007 he signed with Hidden Beach Recordings, and that came out in he had a album which came out in 2007, which was called Part of the Waves. In 2008 he released his fifth studio album, and his last album was in 2017. So this is I thank you for listening to the story of the Tony Ricks Project, and I appreciate you listening and all that good stuff. So I appreciate you and enjoy you. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on social media, on Instagram at In The Mix with Leah B, and on Facebook called In The Mix with Leah B as well. And until next time, y'all, thank you for listening, and I appreciate you listening, and peace and love.